Hello and welcome to how to improve your print qualities through design. In this video, we're going to talk about a couple tricks that I use that help improve my prints. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is elephant foot. A typical rule of thumb that I've been using, and this is usually a finishing thing that I do, is I do a 64th of an inch on all edges that are going to be seeing the printer bed. So this red side's the bottom, orange side is the top for reference. And I would also do this hole, especially if a pin's going to be tight tolerance. And this is just something I would do because then I don't have to remove as much burrs or those elephant feet that are on the print. This other edge we're going to talk about in a second. So this typically allows it so that when the print is done, you just have like a nice sharp edge as opposed to that weird elephant foot that we're talking about. Another thing that I typically do is if I'm going to have a chamfer like this on the bottom, where this side is the printer side, I would typically try to do a 45-degree angle, which is what you see here. But let's say you wanted to do something that's a little bit different. So this is what a 30-degree angle looks like. This could be done, but you'll most likely need supports, and depending on your layer height, you might see a lot of stepping, which could be an issue. However, if you did a 60-degree angle, you may not need a support or as much as support, but you're not going to see as much stepping because of it being such a shallower distance this way. Your overhang is not as steep. So that's something to consider when you're doing a bevel about that way. If you can get away with it, I would try to print it this way, so then you don't have to worry about supports, or even this way so you have a nicer look to it, where this side is seeing the bottom of the printer bed. But again, purely subjective on what you can do with your printer. I would highly recommend trying out a angle gauge, which I'll attach a link to a file that you can try out for your printer just to see what works best as well, because that's also going to be a very specific thing depending on what you have for a printer. The last thing I would typically do is if these edges are an issue for your printer, I would actually do a bit of a fillet. And most slicing softwares already kind of tackle this, but if you can't get it to work for that slicing software, I would do anything between a 64th of an inch, which is very tiny. If you don't want it to be as noticeable, it's maybe even a 32nd of an inch. And again, that's just to give it a little bit more of a rounded feel to it, especially if you find it's too sharp. That's usually a good rule of thumb. You can do a 16th as well. It's just the more you put, the more you'll see, right? So things to consider when doing a fillet on an edge. We're going to keep that at a 64th. And then one last thing to consider, since this is the side that's seeing the printer bed, I typically think about how much material is between the hole and the edge of the part. Now, the reason why I say this is that you want to have a decent amount of material between it. The less there is, the harder it is to have that adhere to the bed. So if you can, try to have at least a diameter's worth of distance from the edge of the hole to the edge of the part. And if you can't do that, for me, and again, this is based on my printer, I do about an 1/8 of an inch minimum. And that just gives enough material between so that it can still print without having any weird parts not adhering. So hopefully those tips help you out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Otherwise, this is Tyler with 3D Printer Store, and I hope you have a great day.